Right. Abe began his career in wine after noticing that the many shared parallels with his past experience in music publishing. He has gone on to run beverage programs at Corkbuzz, Intersect by Lexus, and Contento, as well as a sommelier stint at two Michelin-starred The Modern. As a sober sommelier, he's dedicated to fostering conscious consumption and a more inclusive wine community. Growing up between Guadalajara, Mexico, and the border town of Laredo, Texas, Abe is very close to challenges in the bicultural experience. As a board member of Corporate Pero Latinos, he co-leads their English as a second language program for hospitality workers in New York. This program is committed to help eliminate the barrier to entry that language is for a large part of the Latinx community. For his efforts, he's been recently one of the wine enthusiast for Future 40 tastemakers. He hopes to create career opportunities and continue operating in the wine industry with a focus on education and equity. Abe, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Um, and thank you for this because, as I'm sure a lot of you can relate, our minds are running at 100 miles per hour. And so, getting down ideas in a way that is a little more digestible is always a great exercise and a great check in with yourself. Um, that said, if I look like I'm reading something, it's because I have notes. So if I look like I'm reading, it's because I'm reading. It's because I don't want to ramble too much. But hi again. I am Abe Zarate. I am a working sommelier in New York City, and I am 4.5 years sober. Um, I found that when people learn that I'm a sober sommelier, they typically are curious about two things, and those are the how I go about it and why I still choose to be in the beverage industry. So I've been very lucky. For one, I've normalized sobriety for myself. So it's one of those things where if, at least in my head, if I don't make it weird, no one makes it weird, at least to my face. But again, I've been very lucky to be in places where people have welcomed me. And because of that, what I've been shown, I am able now to recognize immediately what new places and or people will potentially be welcoming as well. And by that, I don't mean that I need any specific accommodations or anything. It's the simple fact that my presence won't be questioned. Logistically, and being a sommelier, making, tasting these wines, I still meet every job requirement. The big thing is tasting wine, which I still do. For anyone unfamiliar, it's a very common practice to spit that taste. It just so happens that I spit every single time, unlike many, some of my peers. So um, that taste just gives me all the information that I need really to operate as I need. And another big part of my messaging, because even in the term sober sommelier, they're kind of opposites. It's do whatever works for you. I've gotten some messages from people over the past 4.5 years, not many, thankfully, but along the lines of not being a real som because I don't drink the wine, or that I'm not truly sober because I still taste wine, even if I spit it. So it's, I understand that it's comfortable for people to label things and other people, but the way the world operates is on a gray area, so getting comfortable with that gray area in every aspect is as much part of the process as anything else. And so that's the how, mostly again, logistics. And the why is I remember when I've been in restaurants for, since high school, but when I moved to New York after college, I was working in music, and just to make ends meet, I got a job at a wine bar called Corkbuzz, and it was only a weekend job. But one day I got embarrassed because I was asked a question. I don't remember the question, but it's something that I should have, known the answer to, just because I work there. And I've always, thought you should take pride in what you do, even if it's just 2 days a week. So I took a wine 101 class, and I immediately, maybe it's the musician in me that fell in love with the idea that 2 ounces of wine can retain qualities of where it comes from and how it grew up, how it was treated, and the fact that it can also evolve as you spend time with it. I found those to be very human-like qualities. Um, and also, just the fact that when we're little, we're in this kind of constant discovery mode, and that goes away as we get older. When we're babies, toddlers, we're constantly finding new and exciting things, and that almost stops if you let it. So with wine, I found that once I got rid of the sort of ego of, an insecurity really of feeling like I had to know it all, which is obviously impossible. But when you're first starting out, that's kind of the goal, I guess. Then I turn it into excitement. Not nowadays, I get excited when I say I don't know to something, because it just means I'm gonna discover a new person, a new winemaker, a new wine region. There's always something new happening, and that feels really cool to just be in that mode again, and it'll never stop because, as we know, things are ever changing and evolving. So, um, another, I guess, parallel, which I'm sure is not new to any of you in the industry, that I like to use is that I view I just didn't want to give up the community I had built already in the wine industry, just because I didn't want to ingest alcohol. So I kind of viewed it as a sort of allergy of sorts, just because I remember working with this chef who had a shellfish allergy. And I mean, that doesn't mean that he was bashing shellfish. It didn't even mean that he didn't have it on the menu. He just, kept his safe distance and figured out different systems around it to, still highlight it in a way. Just because something wasn't good for him specifically didn't mean that it wasn't, something to be enjoyed by others and even himself, just again in a different way. So in terms of having negative experiences that are tied to sobriety, thankfully, again, beyond, a message or two here and there, I haven't had many in the professional sense. But, I have lost out on a gig where, there was an intermediary between the job opportunity and myself, and as well as this person I know explained everything around the way I operate. They were just too nervous and around, like, spitting every time. And so I didn't get that. But not really. I haven't really had many experiences like that. Beyond I can think of being at a restaurant, and one of my coworkers telling me that one of the regulars um, of the restaurant, not me specifically, but didn't trust my wine recommendations because I didn't even drink the wine. So, but that's the difference in that opportunity of having FaceTime with this person, because I eventually turned him around because I just, in a way, kept delivering anytime he visited, and it's just getting to know the person. It's this is beyond the wine industry. It's just once you get FaceTime with someone who seems so different from you or does things differently than you, there's always a common ground or a common denominator to be found, and a way to just respect that those differences. So that's on that. It's I don't focus too much on making it so that other people understand, because that's not my business. But if they do, I would hope that they understand that I can do this job successfully, not in spite of, but because I am sober. And that's just, a layered thing. But what led me to become sober is not necessarily a rock bottom. I don't think that there is a single rock bottom. It's if anything, it was a compounding of different moments in which I compromised, my self-respect, dignity, and Most of all, my relationships. I think the rock bottom is a fallacy because you shouldn't need this big dramatic event to rethink any relationship, whether it's with a person or with alcohol, any other substance. I think that idea keeps us waiting for the big one. And it gives us a false sense of confidence that, okay, you made it through this rock bottom, so you got this. And it was just one bad night, and you know better now. But it doesn't rid you of those consistent behaviors. And for better or worse, consistency drives change. So rethinking behaviors isn't just for those with a problem. And that's another idea that I focus on as I work in the wine industry. I used to wear the title of professional alcoholic as a badge of honor almost, and it was being thrown my way in that same way. There's Through all of that, I was still, I still got a job promotion. My first big one. I got, the certification. I got on paper, I was still advancing, which is the dangerous part about it. And but I did get to a point where I just started hurting people that I love deeply, and I still didn't stop drinking. But eventually it just got to a point where I hit a fork in the road, and where I pretty much had two options. One of them, continuing on as I had been for years. And I mean, I was pretty sure how that would end, and it would have ended. So I chose to try one more time, but I thought, okay, let me do it a little differently. So I was just online. I compared to how when I came out of the closet, I was looking at YouTube videos of people coming out and see, a little bit of their stories and how they did it. So I kind of did the same thing without, processing it as that. But I found some celebrities talking about this book, The Easy Way to Control Alcohol by Alan Carr. I'm sure some of you must be familiar with it. And what I liked about it is that, even though I don't agree with every single thing, is that it largely just debunks the myths that we might tell ourselves about what alcohol uh, does for us or makes us become. And it just helped with the initial reframing and rewiring of my brain, which all that is just looking at it through a different lens perspective. Um, and that was the beginning of that. So I learned to view alcohol like any other human relationship, which is exactly how it started with that first Wine 101 class. So when you want to change a relationship without cutting them off completely, you have to create boundaries. And it sounds counterintuitive, but some of the people that I'm closest to are those whom I have the most boundaries with, because I don't look at boundaries as these walls that are impenetrable. To me, boundaries, and this is, I guess, another analogy. If you go bowling, I still need I don't know what they're called, the lane bumpers to sort of guide the ball. I mean, you still have to throw it some way, but that lane is, I view as the access you give to people. When you grant access to someone, you have to guide it. You have to let them know how much and where they can go, and you know, give a general sense of where to how to reach you. Again, not how to stop or when to stop, but how to reach you in the way that you'll have the deepest form of connection in a meaningful way. And that's how I just go about it. I have yeah, I just realize that I have the most with people that I really love. And they're mine, by the way. So I have to, it's my job to show people how to respect them, and to, I don't really like this word, but for lack of a better one, how to enforce those boundaries. So that's a big tool that utilize. Another one I pay a lot of attention to is language. I never wanted to think of quitting alcohol as giving anything up or looking at it as a sacrifice. So I never ever say, "Oh, I gave up alcohol," or "Oh, what I say, I stopped drinking," because it's exactly what I did. I stopped a behavior to ensure that I could swap habits and change my life, really. Um, so it's either quit or stopping. I find that that's very important. And in that same vein, I don't work a program because I found it also honestly a little punishing to consider myself or refer to myself as an alcoholic forever. If anything, I'm an ex-alcoholic, and that's even if I use that term. It's just if you're not actively doing something, it's like I played tennis in high school. I haven't played since. I'm not a tennis player anymore. I know it's not quite apples to apples, but that's another one of those things where it's like I don't want to punish myself with that term. And of course, I see the value in all of that. The main value I see in it is community, but I've also found ways to create community outside of that. And it's kind of all intertwined because I'm not drinking. I have the mental capacity to work on, things like the nonprofit my sister created for Latinx people and do my part as, even if it's just affecting one or two people, it's something, with the English classes. It's kind of a feedback loop of helping each other out, and it just takes you out of your head. I found that too, that whenever you help someone, even if you're feeling shitty, you inevitably feel a little better, a little more medium rare. Um, and just I'm not sure about how I'm doing on time, but
Oh, you're great right now.
but the reason I wanted to start sharing online, mostly through Instagram, is because I looked at all the things that I was putting value in, and one of those was I just cared too much about what every single person thought about me. And so I thought, okay, well, let me turn this on its head and see if I can make it so that it can help my sobriety. Meaning, on my 100th day of sobriety, I posted a story, sort of, again, outing myself with this other account. And I knew eventually people that are in the industry and people in my community would see it. So I was more scared in that moment to be seen as a liability or unhireable or unreliable, all those things, than drinking again. So in a way, it did help initially to turn that weakness into, I guess you could say, into a sort of strength. Not really, just kind of reframing one more thing. And I got to a point where now, I mean, I think anyone who says they don't care about what people say, they're lying. I do care, but it's specific people and it's about specific things. So that's a much healthier way to go about it, I think. Um, it's also the desperation of when I was looking at YouTube testimonials and all of that, and I found the Alan Carr's book. I was also looking up, hashtag sober sommelier, hashtag sober bartender, hashtag sober whatever, trying to figure out if anyone else was doing what I wanted to do. And as you can expect, not many people, or not many accounts rather, were out there. But 4.5 years later, I've connected with so many people who are doing it, and it just proves a point that just because someone isn't outwardly visible doesn't mean that they don't exist or that they haven't been there the whole time. But I did create that account with the thought in mind of, okay, maybe this could be the account for the next person who is in my position at the time. So again, that thought of paying it forward, not to make yourself feel like, oh, I'm gonna do something good for anyone. It's just this because it did more for me really than, well, I don't know that, right? But it did a lot for me to just put that out there, and that's why I keep that going. I have a little kind of mission statement of sorts in my notes app, and anytime I post something, I make sure that it still relates to, I have the vain post here and there sometimes if I'm feeling myself, but most of the time I wanted to relate to the original sentiment of creating that account. And yeah, it's just that's the thing that struck me the most, the fact that I've connected with so many people that message behind the scenes or share so many similarities in the path that I've taken. And so I feel so supported, even if it's not always public, which I almost love more. It feels a little more precious. I think we are meant in whatever communities or roles we occupy within those spaces. I think we're meant to inspire each other and be each other's cheerleaders. So as much as anyone is comfortable, I am always so appreciative when I see someone putting themselves out there, whether it's their story or just putting out there something that they're trying hard on, like because they they're not, or maybe they are, but still do it. There's being scared of failure or being scared of being seen trying too hard. I think that's so valuable, and I think we should be seeing more of that. And that's that.
Thank you so much. We're gonna stop recording.